This is a DrumWise Meets, and today I'm here with Mike Clark. Hi, Mike.
How you doing? Good to see you.
What age did you first get into drums, and what bands or artists inspired you to begin with?
Well, I started playing when I was 4 or 5 because my father was a drummer. So there was always drums in the house. There was always a drum set, and he played jazz records constantly. But he stopped. He wasn't a professional. He had stopped, and he wasn't very good. He didn't play at the level he wanted to, but he loved the music and he loved the drums, so he kept it all. And I'm the one that did it. I guess my brain had assimilated all kinds of music because he had it going on constantly. And I walked over to the drums, and I guess I was 4, maybe 5 years old. And I could play the tom-tom, Gene Krupa kind of solo right away. Nobody had to show me any paradiddles. I could already do it somehow. So that very night, he was so excited that I could play that he took me to a place where his friends were playing and had me sit in with the band. And I had to stand up because I couldn't reach the pedals if I sat down, and I played, and that was it. And I was a child drummer, and that he would get me after I got pretty good. So by the time I was 8, I could play pretty well professionally. I could play at a professional level, and I jazz anyway. And he would take me all over, and I would get jobs as a guest soloist. And people started to find out about me and this, that, and the other. And then I just kept playing. Then I moved back out to California, where I'm originally from, and went to high school. And I played all the way through high school. And I just kept, after a few years after high school, I got a gig with Vince Guaraldi. And he had Cast Your Fate to the Wind, a hit he had out. And we did some of the Charlie Brown Peanut specials. And I played with him for years on and off. But the people who inspired me to play were, when I was a little boy, it was Louis Bellson, Zutty Singleton, Gene Krupa, Buddy Rich, Lionel Hampton, all of those guys. When I got to be about 10 or 11, I started getting interested in more modern stuff, and I shifted into Art Blakey and Clifford Brown and Max Roach. Through high school, I listened to all the Blue Note guys: Billy Higgins, Tony Williams, Elvin Jones, Joe Chambers, Jack DeJohnette. I can't think of everybody right now. So whoever did those records, I listened to them. Let's put it that way. Like a whole bunch of guys. Clifford Jarvis. There were a bunch of jazz cats in those days that were didn't make a lot of records, but were excellent drummers. Grady Tate. I can't think. Probably not Ben Riley. There's probably not too many that I'm not influenced by. Roy Haynes for sure. On and on and on. All of that.
It's great for people that want a list of drummers to check out. I love this question because sure. The younger guys watching this, they need to write all those names down and go and check them all out.
Yeah, they do. If you want to play jazz, those are the guys to build off of. I myself stand on those guys' shoulders, and though if you want to play funk or fusion, that's a different language and that's a different bunch of people. But for jazz, that's where I would recommend going. Kenny Clark, especially Max Roach, Philly Joe Jones was huge for me, still is. Elvin and Tony. Lenny White before Return to Forever, when he would play with Joe Henderson and Andrew Hill and Miles and all of these, Jackie McLean.
Good stuff. And can you talk to us about what your first ever drum set was?
Well, the set that my father had was a round badge set of Gretsch Broadcasters. And it had a 20-inch bass drum. I think it had a 8 by 12 mounted tom-tom, and it had a 14-inch floor tom and a wooden snare. And it was a white marine pearl set. And that was my very first drum set, was his drum set. And then what did I get next? I just got one Gretsch drum set after another. I moved to an 18-inch bass drum when I got a little older, and the K cymbals, all of that. And I stayed with that pretty much the whole way until the music got real loud, and I started playing with some electric bands like the Headhunters, this and that. And so I had to get some big stuff that would power through, because I was killing. Lenny White sold me his Gretsch drum set that he used with Freddie Hubbard, and I used that with Herbie, but I was killing it. The rims were being beat in, and I mean, I was playing so loud and hard. And then I got in about 1997, I got a endorsement. I don't have that's them right there.
Ah.
Can you see?
I can.
Him?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I only have one right symbol up, and so I've been with DW for a long time, and they make a fantastic jazz kit. It's mine sounds good, really good. And I'm not just saying that to say it. They sound really good. I still have my old wooden Gretsch drum set with the 18-inch bass and all that. I never use it. I play these for everything. I use these for everything.
Awesome. So you still have your first drum set sort of thing?
Not my first, but maybe my fourth, third or fourth.
That's cool.
Yeah. In those days, we figured it was going to last forever, so we sold stuff and you traded stuff, and I had a box of old Ks that would be worth probably $40,000. Now I'd be like, here, take it. It's a 20. I don't like the sound of it. I just give it to a friend. We didn't know it was going to be vintage. It wasn't vintage then.
I've heard that actually about one of my bandmates. He's a lot older than me, and he says that he knows someone that got loads of the Beatles gear out of a skip, and and just like sold it off for peanuts. No one knew then how much it was going to be worth.
Believe me, I hear you. We all have this story. Those of us that are from that time period. Lenny White, Lenny has all his stuff, but I don't. I've traveled all over I moved a lot. I moved to the East Coast, and I did all kinds of stuff. So I would, anyway.
Awesome. And you've answered my next question, actually. It's kind of about what equipment you currently use, but you've just shown us, so that's great. If you had to pick one out of that list of drummers, I think this is a really hard question. If I said, like, you've got to give me one, is it possible? Could you give me your favorite all-time drummer?
Oh my God, I don't know whether I could do that or not, because two of them right away, I like them equally. So I would have to say, sure, I'll give you a name, Elvin Williams.
Yeah, well, that's fine.
Okay.
That works.
That would do it. How's that? Those two guys are my very, very favorite drummers on earth, Tony Williams and Elvin. And sometimes I'm a Tony guy, and then other times I'm an Elvin guy. My brain goes from one guy, I never know. You know what I mean? So I'm right in there. But Tony, of course, really was, no, they both did. They both changed drumming forever. If you listen to everybody before Elvin Jones and Tony Williams and everybody after, you can really hear what happened. You know what I mean? Like, are you kidding?
When you first get a gig with a new artist, or you've got to learn something new, how do you learn it? So do you transcribe, or do you just listen, or are you given a whole pack and they go, here you go, here's the entire show written out for you?
Usually they have parts and you read the music, so people should know how to read at least drum charts, you know what I mean? So, and then sometimes with Herbie Hancock, there was nothing written. You just went in and he played, and you kind of had to learn it pretty fast. You played a couple of times, and then you could be playing it that night on the gig. So you had to have a good memory. And I was used to reading stuff. Like I play jazz standards. I don't have to read anything. Sometimes I don't see written music for months, but if you're going to teach me something new, I'd rather have a chart so I don't have to go through take the record home and listen to it 1,000 times and try to, so that's what I do. I always usually ask, please bring some charts, something like that.
Yeah, good stuff.
Unless I write it.
Talk to us about, if you were writing something. Well, talking about charts and things, I mean, I've got one of your books right here.
Okay.
Book. I believe you've got a new book that you want to talk to us about.
I do. This is it right here. It's called the Post-Bop Drum Book. And it's on Hudson Music. It's out on Hudson Music, Rob Wallace and those guys. And what I did was, rather than write what Elvin Jones did or what Philly Joe Jones did or all of this type of thing, being that I come from all of those guys, I wrote my version. I wrote what I do. My post-bop drumming is in here. So it's like, I figured there's already enough books and material on all of those guys. And usually I don't transcribe other drummers' stuff. I just hear what they do. And then if I like some of it, I put it together my own way that fits my hands and sensibility and my feel. And I just, and that's what's in this book. But a lot of guys come in to hear me play, and how do you do this? How do you do that? And it's not just chops or licks. It's how to deal with the band, how to really swing in different ride patterns, different grooves, what do you do when the bass player is behind you too much, or when the band doesn't feel unified? And the same can hold true for funk too. Doesn't matter what you're playing, each problem, or how do you play 32 bars, or how do you play a drum solo and keep track of the form, on and on and on. So I wrote, to best of my ability, all of this information is in this book, so that it's pretty practical, as far as rolling with one hand or playing a single stroke roll at 220 or 30 seconds at 100, and none of that's in here. But there are technical things in here, like how to different stickings, different ways to phrase. I got a lot of phrasing in here and ways to get started, or even the advanced guys like this book. I have people that can play perfectly at this level, not a problem, that are great drummers that call me and say, man, I love this book. So David Garibaldi had called me, him and I, David Garibaldi, Lenny White, Michael Shreve, and Greg Errico are doing, we're doing 3 Zoom meetings a week for about 3 months, and we're trying to turn it into a film about our lives and when our paths cross. Yeah. And I sent this book to David, and he loved it. He said, man, this is sweet, so coming from him, that meant a lot to me. I'm like, okay, I'm on the right track here. So, anyway, that's what's in my book, like all kind, medium tempo, swing, up tempo, the language and dialects of jazz, different ways to go about it, because you just can't have a bunch of technical things together and then go dang-a-lang on the cymbal. That ain't jazz. You really have to speak that language, that lexicon of the history. So I made an attempt to get some of that across the plate in this book. So that's what's going on.
What do you think has been the highlight of your career so far?
I think the highlight of my career is living in New York and playing jazz gigs night after night after night for 30 years. And I'll tell you why. I've done more visible stuff with Herbie and those guys. That's also a highlight. Herbie Hancock, of course. How can I, Brand X was a highlight. But my passion, in New York, the jazz musicians play so focused. They don't have any more technique than anybody else. It's not chops, but jazz language is so heavy here, and people are strict. You really have to know it. And once you do, and you interact at that level. For me, there's no higher art form. I mean, I'm not saying it's the highest, but to me, it's the highest art form that I could be involved in. So playing night after night, year after year, trying to perfect this thing, which I'm never going to be able to perfect, and that's the highlight of my life. And recording, I do a lot of records and stuff. I make a lot of I just did one with Eddie Henderson called Shuffle and Deal, which will be out at the end of this month on Smoke label. I have another one on New York One label, I believe, and it's called Wolf, Clark, and Dorsey Play Sergeant Pepper. We played the tunes from Sergeant Pepper, but we played them all straight ahead and swung. You know, it's all jazz, acoustic jazz trio. No eighth note stuff. It's all swinging, right?
Away from drums for a minute, what are your hobbies away from drumming?
Herbie Hancock turned me on to Buddhism in 1973 or 4, I can't remember. And I chant Nam Yo Ho Renge Kyo, Nam Yo Ho Renge Kyo. Him and Wayne Shorter and Buster Williams, they all taught me this when I was a kid, when I was young. And so I study Buddhism, I chant, I try to change the parts of my life that are not working, and I try to overcome every obstacle that stands in front of me, every one of them, whether it's health, money, gigs, career, feelings, inner feelings, you know, like if you feel weird, lacks of confidence, whatever humans go through, I go through everything all humans go through. And I challenge all that through chanting, and I get a great result. So that's not really a hobby, but it's a serious commitment for me. I'm deeply involved in that. And I like, my wife and I cook dinner together and have a nice glass of expensive red wine, you know what I mean? And we hang out. I like going to the gym. And my favorite thing in life, other than playing, would be going to an outdoor restaurant or cafe in New York or Paris and just hanging for hours. You know, that's cool. And then my other thing that I like is going to jazz clubs and hearing who's ever in there. I almost don't care who it is at this point. I just dig it, you know. So that's it. I don't really, that's pretty much does it. I mean, I travel a lot, even if I'm not before the virus, even if I'm not working, I drive all over, like I'll accompany my wife to another state when she works. She's a filmmaker, so we have to go. So I do a lot of stuff besides drumming, you know, but I don't fish, play tennis. None of that works for me. I'm a city guy.
That is great. But and what I've said to a lot of people actually is that I think we're really lucky because drums, which ultimately started as our hobby, doesn't matter what age we were, drums would have started as a hobby, and in one way or another, it's become a career path.
Yes, because every time it's hard to walk by a set of drums and not try to do something, right?
Exactly.
You know, even if you're tired and
Yeah.
you walk by and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I let me check this out. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, so that's cool.
What's your favorite cookie?
My favorite what?
What's your favorite cookie?
Chocolate chip, no doubt, hands down. My favorite cookie is old school Toll House chocolate chip cookies. For me, don't get no better than that, you know. Good question.
Well,
I got one sitting out there too.
And actually, the next part of that, would you dunk the cookie in your coffee?
No, I would not dunk the cookie in my coffee. I have, and it didn't work. Now my toast I will dunk in my coffee, but not a good chocolate chip cookie. I don't think so. You know, maybe every once in a while, but whenever I do, I go like, well, oh, no, that's it's, you know, it kind of, you know.
Have you ever had anything go wrong on stage that you've had to recover from?
Yes. I was playing we did a jazz cruise on a ship, and um, we were playing, everything was fine, and the piano wasn't uh, bolted down to the ground, or I know they don't bolt it, but they have these weights and these
Mm.
things to put on, and we hit some rough water, and the piano started coming right for me, really, and it was moving fast, and I got up from behind the drums and I walked off the stage, and it kind of crashed into the floor tom, and the cymbal and stuff, but not too hard. Then when the ship was kind of going like this, meanwhile, I think the guys are still kind of trying to play. We played this gig in Italy with Herbie Hancock, and it was out in a field with no grounding for the electricity. So Herbie refused to play. And we didn't realize this, but we were hired by the mafia. So these guys with machine guns shot all the tires out of this huge equipment truck that we had. And then we had to play. Herbie said, okay, well, we're going to play. Because there was no, it was raining and there was no ground wires out there. So he was worried about us getting electrocuted. So we played. And then they put all the tires back on the truck. They bought new tires. I don't know where they got tires. And when we got back to Milan, they had beautiful, expensive flowers for us and wine and a great dinner and a big party for us afterwards, like nothing happened.
Wow, that's incredible. My last question for you today, Mike. If you could give one bit of advice to up and coming drummers, what would it be?
I would have to say that playing with live human beings, with other musicians, is the most important. That's how to learn to play. Playing in the practice room is great. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I practice still. But playing with people and in a band is how you learn to interact with others. You can't learn that in the practice room or just playing with records. You have to experience that. And so if you're in a college and there's a lot of musicians, instead of just practicing drums and chops or something like this, try to get in a room with a bunch of guys and play. Go over standard tunes, every kind of tune you can think of. Play funk, play jazz, play samba, play whatever, And I'd say another thing to do would be to learn to read music. I'm not saying you have to be a fantastic reader that can read in 17 and all of this stuff. Just read good enough to read. You should, hopefully better than that. But if you can read well enough to get through the tune, then because nobody wants, when they're making records, they don't want to wait for you to learn, go over it and over it. You go over it 1 or 2 times, you should have it. Unless it's, now if I get stuff that's really like this is in 34/17 or something, then I have to take it home and work it out. I can't read that, some guys can. I'm not that guy. I don't think I'm going to learn that skill in this lifetime, So, do you want to hear what my drums sound like?
Yeah, absolutely. If you can, yeah, cool.
All right. I don't know what they'll hear. I'll try to get it so you can see them, and then I'm not sure what they're going to sound like through Zoom, but I'll just play a little bit so you can get the feel.
Hey. Oh, thanks, Mike. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, Mike, thank you so much for spending your time with us here at DrumWise today. It's been a pleasure.
It's been my pleasure and my honor. Thanks so much for asking me, Tom. Very cool, man. Thank you.